Guys, when I saw this question, I was like, doesn't everybody have the same plan for December 25th? Like, do we not all go home emakaya to spend the day with our extended families and our families? Because hi team, welcome back to another video and thank you so much for joining me. If it is your first time here, andiswa.mojapelo, and on this channel I chat about all things related to managing your money and adulting in general. So if that sounds like your type of vibe, please make sure that you give this video a thumbs up if you enjoyed and you smash the subscribe button if you are not already part of the team. So today, guys, we are doing the final episode of becoming a homeowner. I am so happy that we got to go through all of the conversations that I wanted to have and share the knowledge that I got and that I experienced through my journey with you, so that when it is your turn and when it is your time, you sort of have all of this packaged in a series. If you haven't caught all the episodes, you can also go back and watch them. That's why they're there, to stay there, so that when you need them, you can access them as and when you need them for the questions that you have. But at the end of every series, I always ask you guys on different social media platforms if you have any questions on the specific topic, and today's one being property, that I haven't covered in the conversations that you would like to know. And you did send me a few questions. I will answer all the questions that were sent to me because it's not that many. For the people who sent me paragraphs that had different questions, I broke them down into 2 or 3 questions just to make it easier, to make sure that I cover everything. So if you hear the first part of your question, don't think, she's not answering the whole thing. I will probably answer it later on or in a different part, but I'm going to go through everything. That I'm going to make sure that I do. Okay, enough with the intro. Let's get straight into the questions. The first question that was asked was, how are you finding your new home, Andy? How do I even answer this? I've been feeling a different kind of way. I know that you're expecting the response of, oh, I'm loving it, and I've been decorating and making myself feel at home, and all of those nice things. And I'm not even there yet. And it's been like 2.5 months now, and I'm not even there yet. I think more so where I'm at is that I've just been at a place of deep gratitude, and I've been very emotional about the whole process and where I'm at, and I just can't believe it, to be honest. I think that's the best way to put it. I just can't believe it. And in terms of how I'm feeling, there's this colleague that I used to work with. Her name is Ndumi. And every time something would happen in her life, every time, you would compliment her or she was celebrating something, she'd always respond with the same sort of saying that my friend and I often remember her for. And she'd always say, we thank God, Slobosam, For everything, you'd be like, hi, Ndumi, how are you? She's like, no, I'm fine, Slobosam, I'm healthy. We thank God. If you're saying, congratulations, Ndumi, on your this and that, she'd be like, we thank God, Slobosam. That was like her saying, right? And I'm really there. Like, I'm really just at a point of we thank God, and I'm at a point of deep gratitude and appreciation of God's grace, and just letting me be here and letting me live this life. And there's been a number of things that have also been happening around moving into the new home that I've just been in a, is this me? Like, is this life right now? Is this for real? So I've been there, and with work being hectic and that, I haven't really fully immersed myself in the new home, and a lot of things are going very, very slow, but I'm also very patient with myself going into the festive season. And I think it's only now that I'm moving out of that period to, wow, okay, this is real. What are you going to do about it? Start enjoying it and start really like easing into the home and all of those things. Sure, I went around about with that answer, but that's really how I'm feeling about the home. I'm just at a very, very deep place of gratitude, to be honest. The second question is, what's your biggest regret from the whole process? The biggest regret I have from the whole process is, oh yes, not planning in advance, guys. I deeply regret that. So there are things that when you are moving that really help if you plan them in advance. For example, I started looking for the moving company quite late, And because of that, I ended up like, picking based on who's available and all of those things. The second thing was I didn't do the curtain measurements before we moved in, which was not smart of me. So I could have honestly asked, the previous owners if we could take measurements of the curtains when I was here or when we picked up the keys so that I could have the curtains made before that. There's so many windows and I just really struggled to find things to cover the windows, and it took time to make the curtains. So all of those things I really wish I had planned well in advance. And the last one was our Wi-Fi. Like, we were without Wi-Fi for more than a month. I thought it would be easy to move from my current service provider, from my previous service provider to this one. But then I found out after we've moved that they have no coverage here. So I had to source an external one. But then I also had to serve 1 month notice with the previous provider, which means I paid for Wi-Fi for the month of October, but without using it. So all of those things, I feel like I could have seriously, done well in advance, put in the notice, checked for coverage providers and all of those things. And it just made the first few weeks quite stressful because we didn't ease into moving in. There was a lot of rushing and all of that happening. So that's definitely one regret I do have, that I could have just planned things a bit sooner so I wouldn't be rushed to make decisions and all of those things. The third question is, how are you able to stay consistent with the series even when the views are not all that great? How are people able to stay consistent on YouTube, period? Like, that should be the question, I think, which is probably an entire video on its own. But how am I able to stay consistent? It's very simple, really. So I think it's very important as an individual, when you embark on anything, actually, that you understand your why very clearly and you know why you are doing something, so that you're not easily swayed or discouraged by certain things. I create mostly financial education content. I just try to deliver it in an interactive way and include some fun things here and there. But that's really the basis, having money conversations. And because of that, I know that the interest is not going to be as much than it would be in your vlogs or your lifestyle content or your luxury unboxings and all of those things, even though we all deal with money on a daily basis and we should be, consuming financial education content, but you find that those channels have less views. I knew that very well coming into YouTube, so I'm not motivated by the views at all. And the second thing is that I stay motivated because I understand that not everybody's buying a property right now, So some people may park the conversation for a later stage where they are in a position to actually use what you've shared. But the cool thing is, because it's evergreen content, it's content that does not expire, it's not trendy or anything like that. I was watching videos from 5 years ago about buying property when I was going through my journeys, just because I found the conversations, valuable, and they were still really, really applicable now. So that's the type of content that I create. And because of that, I don't chase views, I chase quality. And because I chase quality, it's about, is the delivery fine? Is this something that someone can look back to in 2 years and still value from? That's what I care about most. And that's how I'm able to stay motivated, because I understand my why. And I have that in mind so that the other things don't easily distract me. Yes, I'm human. So sometimes it's like, oh, bummer, that video didn't do that well. Oh, well, next episode. So that's pretty much it, really. And then the third question, no, that was actually question number 3. The next question is, how did you save for the once-off costs? It really seems impossible for me. So how do you save for once-off costs? I do have a video on saving, guys, but what I want to say is that it is quite a significant amount of money to have on hand when you buy a property, right? But the best piece of advice I can give you is, ask yourself, how much is it worth, right? So if you want to buy your own home, what is it worth to you? Meaning, what are you willing to give up for it? The reality is that, we don't have 100,000 Rand or 120,000 Rand lying around just waiting to be used. For most of us, the reality is we need to work towards that. And obviously, the more you save, the faster you get there. But in order to get there as quickly as possible, you need to make certain sacrifices. So that's where the what is it worth to you comes in. What are you willing to sacrifice for that? So for example, if you're only able to save 2,000 Rand, it's going to take you a long time. So what are you spending 3,000 Rand What are you spending 3,000 Rand on right now that you value less than buying your own home? sacrifice that 3,000 Rand, add it to the 2,000 and save towards your transfer costs. That's really it. Like, you need to make a trade-off. That's the best advice that I can give you. You guys know that we chose to have a very simple, intimate, affordable wedding last year, right? And I said to you guys that the reason that we made that decision is because we wanted to focus on our other goals. We wanted the money that would have gone to that goal, to that wedding day, to go to something that we will appreciate and really value. We made a sacrifice. We traded off something that we would enjoy less for something that we would really, really love. And that's really the piece of advice that I can give for saving transfer costs is look at your budget and say, you know what, I'm spending 2.5 there and that's not something I really want. I'd rather redirect it to something that I'm genuinely going to enjoy, like a home. And if a home is not for you, which we'll get to another question, then that's also okay. Redirect it to where you will find the most value. That's the piece of advice I can give. But it definitely is possible. You just have to ask yourself, what is it worth? What is your least favorite thing about being a homeowner? So I asked Vince this question and we both had exactly the same answer. If you are a homeowner, please answer this question. Please pause the video, answer this question, and then come back and play again, right? Our least favorite thing about owning a home is the payments, or it's the payments. That's definitely our least favorite thing about owning a home. More than the bond, it's just the extra payments like that you're responsible for, like rates and taxes, levies, like certain facilities that you have to pay for and all of those things. Just the additional costs that are a real pain. That's the least favorite thing. Otherwise, everything else is absolutely amazing. And do we think that those payments are worth it? Definitely. Do we enjoy them? No, we don't enjoy them. We don't enjoy paying money out. So that's definitely the least favorite thing. And then famous question, what are your views on buying versus renting? Okay, so my views, right? I love that this question said, what are your views and not what is the right thing to do? So I really love the way that you asked this. My views on buying versus renting are twofold, right? First of all, I've mentioned this in the conversations in the series that we need to stop thinking that, the amount that you use for rent can just easily go into a bond and everybody can be happy and you can pay a property at the end of the day. It's not like that. In most cases, depending on the type of place that you want, your rent excludes a lot of other costs, including interest that you pay to the bank for a bond that makes it more affordable than buying, right? So not everybody who's renting wants to rent. Some people would love to buy and put that money towards the bond, but they don't have the money for the transfer costs. They don't have the money for the bond costs. They don't have the money for the additional costs and all of those things. So the first thing I just wanted to say is my view is that it's viewed as an easy switch, which is not true. It's very different financially to go from renting to buying. So I think we just need to appreciate that it's different. And then the second part is that, honestly, guys, I feel like renting personally taught me a lot about property. It gave me a lot of experience that I wouldn't have learned had I gone into my first property straightforward. Because I learned a lot about the types of buildings, because I lived in a new development and then I also lived in an apartment that was a bit older. I got to see, the structure differences between an old place and a new place. I got to see, when this material is used or this type of material is used, the apartment deteriorates very quickly versus this one, the different types of paints and their effect. And I got to learn all of this on somebody else's bill, right? I also got to learn what I really enjoy and what I think I enjoy, but I don't. For example, I had a balcony that I never used, right? And I thought I liked balconies, but then I ended up not using it at all. And then, I always thought I wanted a house with a pool. And then I had a pool in my previous place, but I hardly went to the pool. I went like 3 times a year. And for the new place, I told myself that if I'm not going to swim that much, then why do I have a swimming pool and its running costs? Those are just examples of how the experience of renting really gives you a lot of experience on what it is that you prefer, how you like to live, what your preferences are, and all of those things. And I wouldn't exchange it for the world. I honestly, in my opinion, think that if I had went straight for buying, which was a plan once upon a time, as opposed to renting, I probably would have bought the wrong place. And that's just me. I think there's a lot that I discovered on my journey of renting that I used to buy a good home. And obviously the fact that rent is more affordable also allowed me to save. That's another benefit. So I think you hear where I'm at with this topic, right? But I definitely do think that owning a home is a worthwhile goal for everybody to work towards. But I just think that being patient about it is very important. Being realistic about that goal is also very important. And of course, like I said in another conversation, make sure you're not buying for the sake of buying, and it is the best option for you given your circumstances, your goals, and where you find yourself. That's also very important. So in a nutshell, like I really benefited a lot from renting before buying, but I think that everybody, should work towards that. But I don't think it should be a cast in stone thing. And neither do I think that, rent is just terrible and nobody should be doing it. Definitely not. Yeah. And then next question is, what advice would you give someone on buying a car or a house first? I think I've had a lot to say about renting in the previous question, but what I will add on about this one is, this one is very, very circumstance dependent, because I feel like when I used to live in Durban, I could have survived without a car for a very, very, very long time. Because of the way the transport system works there, and how local is always available and all of that stuff. Whereas in Joburg, I feel like places are so far here, and they so like scattered all over the place, and you really struggle when you don't have your own mode of transport. So living in Johannesburg, I think it's really difficult to get around, especially if you like me and you've got different interests, side hustles, you want to do this, work there, also do that on weekends and stuff like that. It's very, very difficult when you don't have your own mode of transport. So personally, like, having my own transport just makes life easier, very, very easy, and it would be very challenging. And I don't think I'd enjoy, that home that I bought if then everything is everywhere and I can't get to it and stuff like that. So again, what are your personal circumstances? Are you going to be walking to work and back and you hardly go out to do anything else? Then perhaps that might be what you want to start with, a property that is. But if you want to be busy and you want to hustle and you want to be everywhere, sure, it's really tough to do that without a car. And also, what I noticed is that when I've been helping, other people look for places to stay when they don't have cars, the options are also quite limited, especially in Johannesburg, because you need to think about, but where am I going to get the Gautrain? How am I going to get to the Gautrain? And then when you start calculating the Uber cost, it just becomes so much. So that's my thoughts on buying a car versus a house first. But I think in the rare, scenario where you don't really need to get around a lot, maybe it might make sense. But in most scenarios, sure, like it would be very, very difficult to start with a property first before you buy your own mode of transport. The next question is, the sellers won't pay the outstanding levies, etc. in order for us to obtain the necessary clearance certificates. Is there anything that I can do to pressure them? So firstly, I'm so sorry about this. This is really, really sad. So first thing is that with regards to getting the clearance certificates and the levies sorted and stuff like that, this is something that our transfer attorneys handled on our behalf. It's not something that we were involved in. And my understanding of the process is that that's how it usually is. So, excuse me, I don't think that the pressure should be coming from you. I think it should actually be coming from the attorneys, because they know better and they know what strings they can pull in order to make sure that that person does meet their end of the agreement, which is the sale agreement that you guys signed. So what I did, because we didn't deal directly with this, is I asked our agent, if a buyer has any recourse in this type of situation, and he said that there are a few options. One of them being that he says that you can actually draw up an addendum to the original contract that says that the levies will be settled from the proceeds of the sale, and everybody can sign that, and that's what you can do. You can also, after a certain period of time, enforce legal pressure on them, which I think, your transfer lawyers should be able to advise you in that regard, because, they are facilitating that process, to my understanding. But he did say that you can do that, or you can go to the transfer lawyers. He actually even sent a link of of how the process looks and what happens and who you should be speaking to at which point, which I can share with you if you are interested. But the point is, you can draw an addendum to the contract and say that whatever is outstanding from a monetary perspective can be settled from the proceeds of the sale. Something else that someone I know did was they actually negotiated to take on the outstanding amount of the bill on condition that the sellers would leave their appliances for the couple. So they basically drew up an agreement where you are giving us your appliances, and for that we will settle the outstanding water and electricity bill on your behalf. And they did that. So that's also an avenue you could look at getting into. But I think personally I would really involve lawyers with this type of thing, so that whatever resolution that you go for in these options, it is legally binding, which is very important. Next question is, what is your biggest challenge at the moment with settling in? So my biggest challenge at the moment is deciding what to do first. I think that's the biggest challenge. When we viewed the place, there are a couple of things, or there are a few things that I definitely knew that I wanted to change once we were in. But now I see I see more because I'm here. And obviously when I see more, I want to do more. So the challenge is like, where do I start type of thing. That's where I'm at now. Like, what project do I do first? What do I prioritize? And I've got a couple of ideas. So that's the biggest challenge right now is, do we furnish first or do we renovate first? Do we start with renovating one part of the house fully and then go to the next part? Do we start with doing like all the floors and etc, etc, etc? So yeah, that's the biggest challenge at the moment, is just figuring out what to do when, because I don't like to overwhelm myself. I like to pace everything. So I'd say that's giving me the biggest stress at the moment. And then the next question actually says, do you have any renovations planned for the house? I do. I do. Like I said before, this is some things we knew buying the home, and we factored that in, by the way, into the offer price. We did factor the fact that we have to change certain things. So that's also very important when negotiating a price, that you factor in what you would like to change, and you sort of picture the whole amount. Meaning that if you buy a place for $1 million and you know that you don't like the kitchen and 2 of the bedrooms and you have to change them and they'll probably cost 150,000 Rand, you need to be thinking, can I afford 2,150,000 Rand type of thing is what I mean. So yes, there's definitely some renovations planned. If I have the energy, I will probably vlog a bit for you guys and take you through that journey. I think that would be nice, like sharing some information on renovations, the planning, how to save up for it and all of those things. And then the last question is, do you have any plans for your first Christmas in your new home? Guys, when I saw this question, I was like, doesn't everybody have the same plan for December 25th? Like, do we not all go home emakhaya to spend the day with our extended families and our families? Because that's the way I grew up. On the 25th and on Christmas Day, everybody comes together with 7 colors. My husband grew up exactly the same way. So that's our Christmas plan. We're going to go home for Christmas and we're going to celebrate it that way. Maybe one day, like in future, when we have our own family, we might do the whole Christmas tree thing and celebrate it here. But I think for the most part, both of us enjoy being around family, and that's what we'll be doing. And then maybe we'll do something, like in between Christmas and New Year's, because we're also spending New Year's with family as well. So maybe there'll be something in there, but for the specific day, please let me know in the comment section, by the way. Like, do you guys have your own Christmas plans as a couple that is separate from your extended family, that doesn't include 7 colors? I'd really be interested to know if that tradition is like gone for some people, but that's going to be us this year and for many years to come, I think, as far as Christmas is involved. And that was the last question, guys. Thank you so much for the questions. And like I said, if there's any more, feel free to pop them in the comment section and I will answer them there. I really, really appreciate your support for the series and I hope to see you in other videos as well. Don't forget, if you enjoyed this video, give it a huge thumbs up. If you haven't subscribed and become a part of the team, please make sure that you do that as well so I can see you in videos to come. Bye.